Welcome, fellow humans. Today I'm going to talk about my not a stutter. I call it that because it sounds like a stutter, but it isn't one. Back in 2001, I had serious health problems and I mostly lost the ability to speak. It became a bit intermittent, I had significant difficulty with it, and my vocabulary became all scrambled. I forgot how to put thoughts into words, and over time I was able to heal from that to a large extent, and I'm obviously able to speak now, but there have been some lingering effects because of that. One of the big effects that happened because of that is I developed my not a stutter. And that happens when I'm trying to speak and I start repeating the sounds of the word I'm saying or the word that I just said. And I found that this helps me to find my way to the next part of the sentence. It might sound like a stutter, which is also called a stammer, but when someone is stuttering, they know what they're trying to say. They just have difficulty with the mechanics of speech. They have difficulty actually physically getting the words out. And that's not what's happening for me at all. For me, my brain is struggling to figure out what the words are that I should be trying to get out. When I had those health problems, I was diagnosed with hyperthyroidism. So I usually assume that these problems were caused by hyperthyroidism. And that's probably the case. There's still always that bit of a question mark of, was there some other undiagnosed health problem going on? Maybe even something that caused the hyperthyroidism in the first place. And that's a question that I can't answer. But it is something that seems possible. And I leave that question open in part because I can't find references to my symptom being a common side effect of hyperthyroidism. But I had hyperthyroidism. Before that, I didn't have the symptom, and after that, I did. So it might have been caused by the hyperthyroidism. I didn't have a technical term for my not a stutter, which is why for a while I've been calling it my not a stutter, which is obviously not a technical term. So I did some searching to see if there is any information on this specific kind of speech problem or cognitive problem, and it looks like there is. It looks like the technical term for it is Palilalia. That's a little hard to say. They should make words for speech problems easier to say. But anyway, Palilalia seems to be a term kind of similar to echolalia, which is something that I had heard of before. But echolalia apparently applies when somebody repeats the words that somebody else has said, and palilalia is when you're repeating the sounds and words that you yourself have said. So that seems like it's an appropriate fit where echolalia does not apply in my particular case. I had studied some very basic aspects of aphasia and some speech stuff in my psychology courses, but unfortunately it never covered any of this. So all that I really know about palilalia is what I've been able to find online. So this is not very authoritative. But it looks like palilalia is associated with a wide variety of health issues. It can happen with Tourette's, it can happen from a stroke, it can happen in Alzheimer's, and there are some other possibilities. What I can't find is any link between it and hyperthyroidism. And to the best of my knowledge, I haven't had any of the other health problems that were mentioned in connection with palilalia. I certainly didn't have Tourette's growing up. I am fairly sure I don't have Alzheimer's, and it would be even more surprising if I had it back in my 20s when the problem started. I don't have any knowledge of ever having had a stroke. I assume I haven't had one. So it's a little weird that I have this problem, and a large number of other cognitive issues that happened probably from the hyperthyroidism. But I have read that hyperthyroidism can mimic dementia, and it really felt like it did. So either the hyperthyroidism or some hidden medical factor did something in my brain that was very similar to a non-permanent dementia, because a lot of the symptoms became milder with time. While I still have those little lingering bits of my not a stutter here and there, I am able to speak, whereas there were points back then when I was at the verbal abilities a of a baby at the 2-word stage, and even that I was doing very slowly and with difficulty. So it's significantly less permanent than something like Alzheimer's would be. My non-stutter seems to fluctuate primarily with my health. When I have more fatigue or more migraines, it'll pop up more. Stress can activate it, and any strong emotion will cause it to sometimes pop back up. It won't always pop up in those circumstances, but it's pretty well linked. I've had my partner point out that I seem to be coming down with the migraine because the not a stutter has been coming up, and he will be correct. Usually when that happens, that's generally the problem that's going on. I wanted to bring up this topic because I did have the not a stutter in some of my most recent videos, and I had been giving a lot of thought to how to handle it in the videos. Unfortunately, I had a bit of a rough patch with my health, and so my ability to put thoughts into words was a little bit worse than usual. And when it does show up, I have a couple of options. I can just edit it out, but that creates a little jump in the video that can be a bit disruptive, and I think that that will sometimes be more disruptive than a small bit of my not a stutter. I can leave it in, which is what I did with the recent videos, and I can do a new take on the video, but if I'm having problems with the not a stutter, it's likely to keep coming up, and doing more and more takes will make me more tired, and thus can cause the problem to get worse and worse instead of better. I'm going to try to use a mix of these. With my video on my inaccurate thyroid testing, I did do cuts in the video because that was a very long video and a very difficult topic for me to discuss. With the recent videos, I decided the not a stutter, or Palilalia, was mild enough to leave it in. And I do think there is some merit, because this channel is about my medical problems, to let you see a little bit of the medical problems, as long as they're not too annoying or too disturbing. Hopefully that won't come up. I would have to have new medical problems, and I don't want to have that in order to have something that would be like really visually disturbing. But anyway, so when you see it come up, that's what's happening. I'm probably just a little bit more fatigued than usual, or having some other issues, and so my ability to put thoughts into words has just decreased a little bit. And I wanted to let you know what was going on. And for those of you who are thinking, oh, why don't you just write out a script and read it? Yes, I did think of that. But because of my vision, it is so difficult for me to read things that I assure you it would be even worse for me to be reading something out to you. I would be struggling to read the words and keep my place, and it would be very unnatural. So I've decided that this is the best of my options, and there's always the possibility that things will change going forward. But that's my story, and if you liked it, please click like. And if you know anybody who might find it interesting, share it. If you'd like more content, subscribe. But most of all, if you have any questions, thoughts, or similar experiences, that would certainly be interesting. By all means, please do comment. Thank you.